So here we do 4 sets of 50-meter sprints along the straight, followed by 2 plyometric exercises. Then we do 3 times 75-meter sprints, followed by 2 plyometric exercises. Then we do 2 times 1-2-5 sprints, and these are competitive sprints, followed by 2 plyometric exercises, and then you finish with 1 set of 150-meter sprints. Remember, this is a tough session, it's a brutal session, it's a competitive session. You'll often get people pulling up with a few quad pains. You set the session for the fastest person, but you look after the slowest. So we're really there to motivate the whole group to know everybody's name. So one element, warm-up. We're looking for consistency and continuity through every session. So we're trying to get the same warm-up at every location, at every session. And this gives the members an opportunity to learn the warm-up, to do it each week, to get to know each other, and they get 5 or 10 minutes to talk to each other before we then move into the dynamic session. So the layout of the warm-up is 12 steps wide, 30 steps long, and every 5 steps I put down a cone. So then the actual warm-up, we do a very simple run, a dynamic stretch, and an isometric stretch. So we jog through the grid and then round the edge and back in at 50%. Then you go through a dynamic stretch. So for example, a side squat where you're going sideways, deep squat, a couple of steps, squat again. Then you come back in, and then we do a hamstring stretch, which is the isometric one. So just bouncing into a hamstring and maybe accelerating off. And then the other leg, and so on. Then we come back in. So you've done your run, you've done your dynamic stretch, you've done your isometric. When you get back in, we then go back into a run, but we build it from 50% sprint to a 60% sprint. Round the edge, jog gently in. When you get in, a new dynamic stretch. So this one could be facing sideways, twisting, bouncing. And then we come back in, a new isometric stretch. So this one might be a quad stretch, followed by a small acceleration, and then the other leg. Then you come back in, you go back into your run. So you're now 80%, so beg your pardon, 70% sprint. We need a dynamic exercise, so maybe a walking lunge with a stretch. So first off, just stretching the hips each side, and then maybe you go into a lunge with a twist. So lunging and rotating. And then further forward, you're going lunge and lift. Back in, another isometric exercise. So this time you might do not entirely isometric, but maybe a high kick. So just stretching the hamstrings off and kicking back to get the hip flexors, and so on. Around the edge, back in. We're now into 80%. See, 80% sprint through, new dynamic stretch. This time maybe side squats the other way, or twisting the other way, or changing directions. Back in, new isometric exercise. So this is high knee over a hurdle, for example. A couple of steps, other leg. So just trying, not necessarily isometric, but just taking it a bit more gently. Come back in, 90% sprint. Back in. This time another dynamic stretch. So this time maybe changing direction. So I'm explosive one way, explosive the other. Trying to really get the energy up for the group now. Trying to maybe push them so they can't talk quite so much. Back in, another isometric exercise. This one could be, again, actually, we'll go back into a sprint. So build the sprint up to 100% sprints here, and then finish with the last rotational exercise, and so on. So you really need to get the whole body working, building in intensity, 3 or 4 sprints at the end. This whole warm-up should last about 12 minutes every single time. Then we come off, we circle the group up, we dynamic exercise, so just rotating the hips and the twisting the upper body, getting low. And as you're doing that, you then come up and ask everyone to go around their names, so shouting their names out, so even the new people get to know each other. And then we go into a very brief description of this week's session, and I'll be explaining each of those going forward. So this session, so when we're talking to the members, this session is about speed, agility and quickness. It's about accessing more muscle fibers and getting them really to work quickly, to accelerate, to get faster. We're using the whole group to motivate each other. We're working, this absolutely works and increase speed and energy. Okay, this is Ayden's speed set number 5. There's 3 different types of sprints that we're doing here. One is 50, one is 75, one is 125. The first one's 50 that we're going to demonstrate. We've really trying to big this up. We're trying to get a bit of competitiveness. We're trying to get them competing against each other and be the first person through the 50-meter sprint. You're trying to talk a few key running technique things like acceleration, how they're going to be driving, standing tall when they're past the 10-meter cone, and trying to get the legs working quickly and short steps, quick cadence. So for this one, I've explained to them we're running from the first cone to the orange cones, which is their 50-meter mark. This is simply to get them testing their speed. On the first rep, well, I'll just shout on the line and then go. You ready, boys? On the line, go! And that's good, all the way through the line, please. Good work, Danny. That's fantastic. And then they roll around the edge and they walk back in. When they come back in, I now start to focus on their different running techniques. So I'll start to focus on the acceleration on the first 2 cones, the way they stand after that, and the speed of their legs. This is the circuit training, the Ayden speed circuit training. There's 6 different exercises we're doing here. I'm going to demonstrate this for groups of, so if you have 18 people, you split them into groups of 3 onto each station. Here we've got the push and accelerate. It's contrast training. You're trying to get the person who's doing the pushing to accelerate out of that push, and you're getting a third person to be a motivating runner to try and give them something to compete against. So here, Jules, hands on the back of Danny, please, and George out on the side there. He's going to be running next to George. When they hit the second cone out, Jules is going to accelerate round Danny, and George and Jules are going to run as hard as they can to the 50. You ready, guys? Go! Push, 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 push. That's good. And now go hard, Julesy. Now go hard. George, as you see, trying to compete against him, not making his life easy. They go to the 50, and then they gently jog back in, and they change the pusher over. This needs to be run fairly quickly because we're looking for about 2.5 minutes per station per exercise. Okay, so this is the second exercise in the Ayden circuit. I think it's number 5. Here, one person is pulling. George is going to be pulling. Jules is going to be resisting, so Jules is pulling back on him. Danny's the motivator. He's going to be at the side, jogging for the first 2 cones and then competing against George to the 50-meter line. Okay, when you're ready, guys, pulling George. Go! Drive, 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 drive. That's great, great. And then he accelerates there, tries to go past Danny all the way through the line. And then they jog back in, and then every single person works. That's the second exercise. Great, so Ayden speed circuit, exercise number 3. This is the ladder. All of these circuits are dictated by how fast people are on the push and the pull. Everyone needs to have done that in their groups of 3 before we can move on here. So here, it's just fast feet. The simplest one is 2 feet per square, fast as you can. And then when you hit the end, you accelerate to the blue and jog it, and jog or even walk back in. And then you can give them different exercises. I wouldn't demonstrate every exercise before you kick off, but while they're working, you can dip in and say, okay, that's brilliant on the fast feet, maybe do it sideways. So here we're leading with the left foot, in and out, again, fast as you can, trying to really rattle the feet across it. Ooh. And then accelerate on. And then there is a few other options going forwards as well, but that's your call. You introduce those as and when you wish. Okay, great. So this is Ayden circuit, exercise number 4. This is hurdles. As you can see, I haven't got any hurdles. I've just used cones. Perfectly acceptable to do. You're just talking to the members here about being explosive, trying to get as much height out of the jump as possible. There are different options. Again, you can go sideways, but they're only going to be working for 2 minutes, so they want to get as much height as they can. So just line them up and then tuck jumps high as they can go, and then accelerate off and jog it back in. And they can keep doing that for the 2.5 minutes or so until the people on the pushing have finished. So this is Ayden speed circuit, exercise number 5. This is touchdowns. You can liken it to being on a tennis court or a hockey pitch or a rugby pitch where you're trying to get across for a tap tackle. You're trying to get them to go across each cone as fast as they can, touch each one, and then walk back in. Just for very slowly, I'll demonstrate it. So one cone, accelerate, the other cone, accelerate, bang, bang, and then just gentle walk, jog back in. And they do that over and over again until the people on the pushes have finished. Great, so this is the Ayden Speed Circuit exercise number 6. This is mirror running. We've got George and Jules demonstrating this. George, I've said, can go first, so he's going to make the decision about which direction to go in. He can either go right or to his left to this pair of cones and then all the way to here and back in, or he can do it the other way around, but he has to go to all of the cones. Whichever one he does, Jules has got to mirror him and try and beat him back to the middle. First person back wins. Second person back drops off, and Danny, our third person in our group, comes in and he then becomes the person who decides how to start it. So just for clarity, George, when you're ready. That's good. He can dummy, he can go. That's it. George got a real advantage here. That's it, and he's in. So Jules just came second there. Danny comes in for Jules. Jules stands out. Danny's the first person back in. He gets to decide when to go. He can dummy it. It's his call. That's it. Look at that. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then here, George would roll out, Jules would come in, and so on. Okay, so Ayden Speed 75-meter sprints. There's a couple of really key things we need to think about here when we're coaching. One is technique. So we're talking about that acceleration phase, but there's a really good technique as they come round that bend to talk to them about imagining they've got claws on their feet, or really thinking about using the spikes or the studs in the boots as they come round the bend. So you're trying to engage their hamstrings a bit more. And from a safety perspective, as they hit that last cone, if people are overtaking, they go wide on the overtaking. They do not push past each other. Finally, if you've got a group of people of different paces here, you might want to put one person a bit further forward. And just for today's session, we're going to put George up onto the first cone because he's going to run a little bit slower today to give an example of how to structure it. But you then create a system where George desperately wants to win it and the other two are trying to catch him and go past him. The 75-meter cone is after the end of the D. Okay, on the line, boys. Go! Hard as you can. That's good. Come on, Julesy. It's good. Big effort. Round the bend. Great work, Danny. Keep going. That's good. And he comes through the 75 just there. Perfect. And I would walk them in, and we will do 4 sets of this, 4 reps. So this is Ayden Speed 125, 125 meters. We're not really worried about teaching points now. Re-mention the fact that if people are overtaking, they need to give people distance. But we're getting towards the end of the sessions. People's muscles are working well. This is a time to really start bigging this up, making it feel like it's got some gravity about this last set. So I say things like, this is the one we're going to be talking about on WhatsApp. This is the one we're going to be talking about on Twitter. This is the big one. This is the hugely competitive effort at the end. So they're running straight down this straight, around the D, straight down this straight, through an imaginary gate at the end here. Are we ready, guys? On the line, go! If I have a big group of people, I'll have split the group into maybe 3 lines, 4 lines, and the rest of the groups are going to be screaming at them, talking them up, telling them how well they're doing, telling them how quick they're running, and you need the rest of the group to lift these guys running. Good work, Danny. Good effort, Julesy. Through the line, and everyone's clapping them in. A real feel-good feeling at the end of each set. If you have time at the end of the whole session on the Ayden Speed, you can come and do the 150, just 1 rep, where they run all the way down the straight, around the D, down the other straight, and around this D, and you make that the biggest competitive effort they've ever done. It's a great way to finish it. Everyone's buzzing. You get the whole crowd of 20, 25 members standing at the end, so the people coming in feel really positive about it. But that's only if you've got time. So we've come to the end of the session. We're looking to do a cool down or a stretch. A cool down, you might want to do a reverse shuttle run, so you go 100% to the longest cone and then decrease in energy as you come down. Then we're at about 55 minutes of the session. We've got a 5-minute stretch. Frankly, doesn't have to be that good. You can explain to the members while you're stretching that actually isometric stretches are best done when their muscles are cold. I tend to just do, particularly in the winter when the ground's wet and cold, I do a quick salutation to the sun, or slow salutation to the sun, with a few extra stretches pushed in. You can do any stretch you like, but it needn't be more than about 5 minutes. As I'm going through it, I'll go through it now, but as I'm going through it, I also talk to the members about events coming up and about various things that have been good about the session, that sort of thing. So I tend to ask them to legs wide, roll forward, forehead touches the grass. Obviously you can't get anywhere near the grass, especially if you're as inflexible as I am. Then hands hit the ground, feet go back, hips go high, chin goes low. Stretch that and hold that for longer than I'm going to do it, but not too long. Then hips go high, chin high. That's good. Then I go hips high again and just walk it back until I'm hanging again between the legs. And I look to go wide and stretching the adductor out. And if you can push them low on that one, even better. If they're struggling with this, on one knee, leg out to the side. Then I come into the middle and the other side. All the time I'm talking to them about events coming up, what's going on at training, who's done particularly well during the session. And maybe I'll do a glute stretch as well, so bring the knee across to one hand and just drop into a glute stretch. Then the other leg, and so on. After I've done both of those, I might look into an adductor stretch, so into a one kneeling side, push the hip forward, kneeling side, hand high, and rotate away from that back leg. And again, holding for 30 seconds or so. While I'm in this position, I might go into a hamstring stretch. So that's pretty much it. Maybe finishing with a quad stretch. And I always end the sessions with getting the members as a whole group to face the sun, put their hands on the back of the head, shut the eyes, 3 or 4 long, slow, mindful breaths, just trying to bring them back into the moment, trying to take the energy, the heart rate down a bit. And then we stop, if we can get them to clap, and then head home. So hopefully it's feeling really positive at the end of the session.